flow.
Welcome to episode 118 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs at NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. Thank you so much for listening and watching us on YouTube as well. We are just days away from the start of the NHL regular season. Let's go, baby. I'm so fired up. Can't wait to start watching hockey again because, to be honest, I have not been paying that close attention to the preseason. I know it's a part of my job, I guess, to host this podcast, to track the preseason, but
it's tough.
Fuck it.
Yeah, it's tough.
I just don't really care that much about the preseason. I'm paying attention, okay? I promise you, I'm paying enough attention, but I'm not totally invested. And who is in the preseason? But anyway, the regular season is right around the corner here, a few days away, and we have a jam-packed episode for you because this is our season preview episode. We love doing this every year. We are going to attack this from a betting angle as well, where we are going to look at the point totals for each team based on the numbers in Vegas, and we are going to decide if certain teams are going to go over or under their point total. So we're going to look at the Leafs. We're going to go division by division. We're going to look at all the Canadian teams. This is one of our favorite episodes of the year. We hope you enjoy. So we are going to give you our thoughts and opinions on the Leafs and all the Canadian teams. Can't wait to dive into this. But before we do, it is officially time to welcome in my partner in crime, Mr. Michael Lepore. How you doing today, man?
Doing amazing, Anthony Bruno. The sun is shining in your nation's capital, Ottawa, Ontario. It is so scorching hot, Bruno, in Ottawa. We're hitting almost 30. You know what I saw today driving down the road? A Dickie D. It's October, folks, and I'm seeing Dickie D's. Good news. Let me ask you, Bruno, what's your go-to with the Dickie D ice cream truck or bike, I should call it?
My go-to anytime like the ice cream truck or I guess bike comes along. Well, I'll say with the ice cream truck, Lepore, my favorite thing is a twist, the chocolate vanilla twist.
Sure.
But with like the bike, geez, because they're just like pulling it out of the freezer, right? So, God, I used to, I mean, an ice cream sandwich, probably.
The classic. Yeah. Can't go wrong.
How about you?
It's tough for me to say no if I ever see that Oreo ice cream sandwich. It's like the oversized ice cream Oreo thing. Love it. It's perfection. A+. Like I said, bud, everyone's happy in Ottawa because of the sun and the heat. How's everyone doing in Toronto after your Toronto Blue Jays just looked absolutely fantastic during their postseason run?
It's so funny to me because we all bang on the Leafs for how terrible they are and how they continually fall flat in the playoffs every year. The Blue Jays are just as bad, if not worse. I mean, this is embarrassing. Last year, they had an 8-1 lead in Game 2 against Seattle, blew the 8-1 lead and got swept. This year, they scored 1 run in 2 games against the Minnesota Twins, and everyone's banging on John Schneider. I mean, not even John Schneider, the organization for this stupid decision to take out Jose Barrios when he was dealing after 3 innings. And it was a terrible decision, but at the end of the day, this team can't hit. And they couldn't hit all season, and they weren't going to win shit with this offense. So people in Toronto are very, very angry at John Schneider, Ross Atkins, Mark Shapiro, the entire Blue Jays organization, the whole roster. I mean, no one's safe right now. Like, they're the most hated team in this city right now, and that's saying a lot because the Leafs exist.
Yeah. There was this. What's the stat? They haven't won a game. When was that time they won a playoff game?
I believe it was. I want to say it was 20. Was it? Did they win one in 2016?
So we're going back, man. That's what I'm saying. Horrible.
It's really bad now. They've gone like they were swept against the Rays in the COVID playoffs. They were swept last year against Seattle and now swept again against Minnesota.
Yeah, and so someone even posted their runs. Like you said, they can't hit. Like they've barely put up any runs during those games. And even you said that 8-1 blown lead. Is it just me? And maybe because I don't live in Toronto. I feel like that's an underrated bad sports moment.
Fucking embarrassing. That's right up there for me in terms of most embarrassing playoff moments. Like that's 1A and 1B with the 4-1 blown lead against the Bruins in 2013.
Yeah. But again, why like 4-1? I mean, hockey, it's Canada. I mean, for 30 years, people will be talking about that. But I feel like that 8-1 blown lead never really comes up, like top 10 list, stuff like that, or it's referenced. I don't know. People go soft on everyone except for our Maple Leafs, man. I've always made that point. It drives me nuts because
it doesn't make any sense because the Blue Jays should be catching just as much flack, if not more flack, than the Leafs. Like this is pathetic now. Like this Vladimir Guerrero and Bo Bichette era, as much as I like them, and unless
Guerrero's taken a lot of shit. Guerrero's taken a lot of shit.
It's been rough for Vladdy because he just hasn't been as good since his runner-up MVP season a couple years ago. But this era is not off to a good start, man. Like they can't win shit in the play. Like people think the Leafs can perform in the playoffs. This team fucking stinks in the playoffs.
Yeah. Am I remembering correctly? Onright said they were talking about this morning, and in the preseason, they were the third best odds to win the American League. Is that right?
Yeah, they were right up there. It was just like the year before. All this hype, World Series, AL pennant hype, and they're just not good enough, man.
Yeah. Was it last year they were like favored to win the division or something too in the preseason? It's bad.
It's just so bad. But
and the thing too, and again, we're beating the crap out of this, but right now, the powers that are the Yankees and Red Sox are not on top of their game. So you can't.
This is when you're supposed to take advantage.
Yeah, you can't rely on this. Like historically speaking, you can't. Yeah, no, they'll be average. No, they're gonna be good. It's an anomaly for them not to be really good.
Well, from one pathetic team to another pathetic team in another league, the Toronto Maple Leafs. They are such a great regular season team.
Unbelievable.
And the books see it that way again, because according to Pinnacle Sportsbook, and we are going to be taking all of these over-under point totals from Pinnacle, the Leafs right now, their line is set at 106.5 points. Okay. So last year, the Leafs had 111 points. The year before that, franchise record 115 points. There is only one team in the NHL with a higher point total right now, and that is the Carolina Hurricanes at 108.5. The Leafs are right below that. So I ask you, Lepore, we'll start things off. Over under 106.5 points for the Leafs. Do you think they're going to win the Atlantic Division?
My favorite show of the year, Anthony Bruno. I love talking about this stuff. 106.5. I think the Leafs do it easily. I think the Leafs even clip their total of 115 this year.
Wow.
And people are already screaming, calling me a homer in the comments and at their screens. But that's not me saying I think they're going to do well in the playoffs. It's just the way this lineup is built. I think they're going to score a lot of goals. I think Keefe will keep them responsible. I think Sammy and Wall will be good enough that over 82 games, I just think they're going to win a fuck ton of games. So I'll put it this way, Bruno. Let's say the Leafs finish with like 104 points. I don't want to say it would be a disappointment, because anytime you hit 100 points, it's not a disappointment, but it'd still be a 7-point drop off from last season, 11-point drop off from 2 years before. So it'd just be kind of like blah if they did that. So I'm not trying to put pressure on them, but I'm just saying that's how I would feel. Like I wouldn't be happy with like 102, 104 point season. And the over-under is 106. Like to me, 106 would be fine. And I guess it obviously depends on how the season plays out, if they're comfortably in or comfortably number one in the Atlantic and they kind of cruise at the end. But I think they clip it easily, Bruno. 106.5. I think the Leafs go way over that total. I'll say, you know what? 10 over, 116.5, 117 points.
So you're smashing the over on
I'm smashing the over. Yeah. I just think, man, they can score. The team can score, and I think they'll make another move on D. They won't be as reliant on Matthews and Marner because they added Bertuzzi and Domi, Klingberg offensively. And what did they lose? Kerfoot, Bunting, Hall. Like I think they got better. I really do.
Sorry, when you say those names, I'm just like, wow, they're replacing Kerfoot, Hall, and Bunting. Okay, I do like Bunting.
Yeah,
with Bertuzzi,
I like Kerfoot
Domi,
too.
And Klingberg.
Kerfoot.
You just look at that as a 3v3. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, and Matthews had an off year last year. I mean, Tavares is going to get his 80 points. Marner is going to get in the 90s and just fall short of 100 like he always does. But like I said, man, I'm smashing the over on the Toronto Maple Leafs at 106.5 points. You?
I am also smashing the over. And listen, I picked them to win the President's Trophy every year. I'm not as confident in them winning the President's Trophy, even though I was probably very confident like a couple weeks ago when we talked about this previously. There are a couple teams that scare me a little bit more just in terms of like regular season and how many points they're going to rack up. But I think the Leafs easily win the Atlantic Division. I'm smashing over 106.5. I think they get somewhere in the 110 range again. Like last year, 111, year before 115. I think they fall somewhere in that range again. You nailed it there. Like when you look at the 3v3, Hall, I mean, it's just funny mentioning these names. Hall, Kerfoot, and Bunting.
And throw in Bruno. Throw in Wall as the goalie versus Murray.
Exactly. And in comes Bertuzzi, Domi, Klingberg. Let's also not forget a whole year of Matthew Nyes.
And a whole year of Jake McCabe. I think people are forgetting about that one too. Underrated.
Whole year of Jake McCabe, Joseph Wall as the backup goalie. And who knows, maybe the starting goalie at some point this season. You never know how this is going to shake out. The way I look at it, goaltending wise, neither of these guys have ever taken on a full workload. Like people forget last season, as good as Samsonov was, he only played 40-ish games. It's not like this guy played 60 games. He wasn't a workhorse goalie. So I do expect him to put up good numbers. I expect our goaltending to be good again, just because defensively, like Sheldon Keefe does not get enough credit for how he has transformed this team defensively. And they're a well-oiled machine at this point. I don't think they're on the level of like Carolina as like a defensive stalwart, or even New Jersey, who was also very good as a team defensively last year. They're maybe not quite on that level, but they're going to score a ton of goals. They're going to keep the puck out of the net. This is a slam dunk over, and I think they win the Atlantic Division.
Let's go, baby.
It's time for a quick break for a word from MANSCAPED. Hockey season is back, and we are gearing up for the action. Make sure you look ready with the real all-star of the league, the Handyman from MANSCAPED. This dual-action foil shaver is your ultimate power play against unruly facial hair. It'll have your face as smooth as freshly Zambonied ice. Get 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive code GFP20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping using the promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Lepore, Manscaped just does not miss.
It's happened to all of us, Anthony Bruno. We're driving, we're at a red light. We flip that mirror thing down in our car and we see a few pieces of stubble that we missed. So Manscaped saves the day with the Handyman. What a product, so convenient, small, fits anywhere. Like Bruno said, manscaped.com, GFP20 for 20% and free shipping.
Manscaped is always looking out for us, fellas.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you have hair, they are there to help us out. Oh, God, I love you, Manscaped. All right, you heard it. Get 20% off and free shipping using our exclusive promo code GFP20 at manscaped.com. Go to manscaped.com and use GFP20 for 20% off and free shipping. I promise you will not be disappointed. All right, man. Well, looking throughout the rest of the Atlantic Division, who do you think has the second highest point total? And I know you've taken a look at this, but I actually have it all listed
I don't remember
in order in front of me. Who do you think is next after the Leafs in the Atlantic Division? Because it's actually pretty crazy.
Surprising.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Boston.
You're right.
Okay.
And the books have Boston. Pinnacle has Boston at 99.5 points. So think about that. That's a 7-point gap. They have the Leafs at 106.5. And then Boston at 99.5. A team that lost Bergeron, lost Krejci. You would think Pasternak is going to take a step back now that those guys are gone. Like, I don't think he's going to score 60 plus again. Brad Marchand is a year older. Like, he's not a spring chick. The guy's like, what is he, like 35 now?
Yeah. Is Allmark going to do what he did last year?
Allmark and Swayman, are they going to have that same year that they did last year where they literally just stopped everything? I mean, everything went right for Boston last year. I don't think they're going to finish second in the Atlantic, man. I would go. I'm going to go under 99.5 points on this team. How about you?
See, we've been shitting on the Bruins a lot lately, and I think that's the easy take when you lose players like Krejci and Bergeron, and you lose that center depth. But like looking at that number, like I asked myself, they had what last year? 136 points.
135 NHL 135 record.
Okay, so and that's an explosion. Like everything has to go right for that to happen. But is losing those on paper, is losing those two guys worth 35 points? Okay. The answer is no.
Is no.
Because these underlying numbers, guys, I've seen charts where they value each player based on wins or points. And if I remember correctly, McDavid's the most valuable player, shocking. And I think he's worth like 12 points. And that's Connor McDavid. I think Matthews was second. He was like 9 or something like that. And that's like above average, right? Like if you complete average lineup, you add in Matthews, it'll gain you 9 points. So it makes you think like, maybe this team's still really fucking good. But I've kind of changed a bit. I was really hard on the Bruins thinking that, this team's going to miss the playoffs. Look at this lineup. This is terrible. They're still the Bruins. I'm going under, but I'm saying just. Like, I don't think they're a 100-point team, but I think they're like a 90. I'm saying they're going to be like in the 96, 98 range.
Okay, so you think they're making the playoffs then?
I think they're in a wild card spot, yeah.
Okay. Let's keep going down then in the Atlantic Division, because after them, we have the Tampa Bay Lightning. Pinnacle has their point total set at 94. Or sorry, I jumped the gun there. It's the Florida Panthers are right below the Bruins. Their point total set at 98.5. And they're dealing with injuries to Brandon Montour, who shouldn't miss a ton of time coming off surgery in the offseason. Aaron Ekblad is going to be out a little bit longer. And that's tough. I mean, you have those two guys on the blue line who are out to start the season, but still their point total set at 98.5. A team that I'm high on. I think they're going to be a top 3 seed in the Atlantic, despite the injuries. This is tough, though. This line is tough to me because I could see the Leafs just like running away with the division, but I have said I think the Panthers are going to be a 100-point team. So I'm going to hit the over, but just slightly on Florida.
I love when we disagree, Anthony Bruno. I will be going under on the Florida Panthers. They got some star power. They got some names, but I'll say it. I don't think they're very good. And they beat my favorite hockey team in the playoffs last year, but I don't believe in that lineup. I saw the Leafs outplay that team in the regular season like crazy. In the playoffs, most games, the Leafs outplayed them. They got into the playoffs, was the last week of the season because their goaltending went bananas, and they made that run because Bobrovsky came in, and I don't know what he injected himself with to play that well. So I don't believe in Florida, and I think it's a good Atlantic division. So I'm going to go under on the Florida Panthers.
Okay. I just seem to be higher on the Panthers than the market.
Yeah,
right
maybe
now.
I'm just bitter, maybe. I don't know, probably.
I even drafted Sergei Bobrovsky in my fantasy league the other night. I drafted Bobrovsky and Brandon Montour. Montour, I'm just stashing on my bench until he returns. Nice. And Bobrovsky, I just felt like, all right, like, why am I like there wasn't that many like workhorse goalies left, and maybe he's gonna have another terrible regular season. But I'm like, if this guy plays like 55, 60 games and the Panthers are a 100-point team as I think they're going to be.
Yeah.
I just said, why the hell am I not going to take this guy? So that'll probably blow up in my face, but let's go down the list here. So I jumped the gun a little earlier, but next up is the Lightning. 94 points is their point total. This is clearly due to the Vasilevsky injury. You talked about McDavid being worth 12 points, Matthews being worth 9 points. I would imagine Vasilevsky is somewhere in that range, being the best goalie in the NHL, because you would think if he was healthy, this team's point total would be somewhere around 100. Right now it's set at 94 flat. So you got over or under for Tampa.
That's saying they're going to miss the playoffs. They're saying it's likely they're going to miss the playoffs. Gotta go over on Tampa. Too much star power. They're too pro. Cooper's the coach. I don't know, man. I think, and maybe this is an easy take. But I think with Tampa this year, they're going to surprise everyone and be a great, I'm saying surprise everyone, but they're going to give the middle finger to everyone and be a great team again, or they're going to fall on their face. Like terrible start, can't recover. But I'm not going to believe that's going to happen until I see it, because this team's been so good for so long. And I love the talent they have on their roster, and I love their depth. So on 94.5, there's also rumors coming in about them making a move for a goalie. We touched on that when we talked about the Vasilevsky injury. I'm going to go over on that one. Again, I think even if they are a team that's really dialed in, there's also that factor of they're just too pro to have the regular season in their minds as something very serious, and they know what they're doing. They don't care where they finish in the standings. So I'll go over. I don't think it's going to be too much over, but I'll go over on the Tampa Bay Lightning. You, Bruno?
Yeah. So the odds right now to go over at Pinnacle, over 94 points, -119, under is +100. So the likely scenario, and it's not like it's a slam dunk, is that they will go over. But I agree. I think this team is too good defensively, and John Cooper is too good of a coach for the Vasilevsky injury just to completely sink this team. As good as Vasilevsky is, I think they'll stay afloat. And I think, not that you can just throw anyone in net, but I think that if any team can figure it out with an injury like this, I think it's Tampa.
Exactly.
So I'm going to go over as well. I think they're a top 3 seed in the Atlantic. And I've been sticking to this for at least the last couple of months now. Every time we've brought this up, I think the top 3 teams in the Atlantic are going to be Toronto, Florida, and Tampa. And Boston is going to be fighting for a wild card, and same with these other teams, because next up on the list in the Atlantic Division, Lepore, is the Buffalo Sabres, 93.5 points.
93.5. Bruno, man, let's step back for a second. If someone told you a year or two ago that we were doing this and the Tampa Bay Lightning would only be 1 point ahead of the Buffalo Sabres on this chart, we wouldn't believe it. Wow.
Pretty crazy.
93.5. I always root for the Sabres. I think the Sabres are that team that everyone feels sympathetic for, and those are great jerseys. So I'm always going to have a place in my heart for the Buffalo Sabres. But I am going to say that the Buffalo Sabres, the hype train is a little too high. And I think people aren't acknowledging the question marks they still have with how they are as a defensive unit, as well as their goaltending. So I'll be rooting for the Sabres, but if I had to bet my hard-earned cash, I would go the under on that one.
Yeah, I have the under as well. And I think goaltending is a massive question for this team, because right now, rookie Devin Levi is slated to be their starting goalie.
Yeah.
Like that's
tough.
That's not great.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to see how that plays out, because they do not have great goaltending. And who knows, maybe he's going to be fantastic. I mean, it's possible. We've seen rookie goalies hit the ground running before. I just think it's tough to rely on a rookie goalie who's never played in the NHL, who's never handled a full workload before. So they're obviously going to have to like piece it together. They're going to have to start, whoever else they start outside of this guy throughout the season is not going to be great when you compare it to like the other goalies in the Atlantic Division, for example, right? So, and listen, there's got to be some, because based on these lines, like the Atlantic Division is going to be one of the strongest divisions, and someone has got to go under, right?
Exactly.
Like it's not like all these teams are just going to go over their point total. So I have under as well. And by the way, like their backup right now is Eric Comrie, who's a fine goalie, but it's like, I don't know. I don't have a ton of confidence. I know they have like a lot of like high end players who, like Tage Thompson broke out. Alex Tuck had a great season last year.
Skinner came back.
Yeah, Skinner came back to like Dylan Cousins. Like a lot of guys broke out last year. And then you have Owen Power and Rasmus Dahlin on defense. Like Dahlin's a monster, but I think their goaltending kind of stinks, honestly. So yeah, I have under on the Buffalo Sabres. Next up, we have, as I go through the list, Lepore, your second favorite team, the Ottawa Senators, 90.5 points.
Yeah.
Are we going over or under for the Senators this year?
The pesky Sens. News hasn't been good regarding the Sens lately, man. They're having a really good preseason, but this stuff with Josh Norris and him not playing yet, all the issues with his shoulder and the whole Shane Pinto saga, negative right now. I mean, I know I speak to Sens fans all the time, and a lot of them, this is worrying them because they saw their center depth as a position of strength going into the season, having Stützle, Norris, and Pinto, and that's fair. Those are three very good players. But if you're missing two of them, like we talked about the Bruins losing Krejci and Bergeron, those guys aren't Krejci and Bergeron, but they're very good players. So I'm going to fight through the negativity that's going on with the Senators right now, and I'm going to go over on 90.5. I say this every time we do one of these shows. I try to look at what's most likely. Like I'll look at, say, 5 points above, 5 points below, or 10 points above, 10 points below. If someone said the Sens finished with 95 points, I'd believe them. 85 points, not that I wouldn't believe them, but that's a disaster for this organization. There's firings and probably a trade. So I'm going to go the over on this one simply because I think they're better than, say, 4 points compared to last year with the new goaltending and one more year of development with their young players.
Everyone knows how hard I typically am on the Ottawa Senators, but I do think they're going to have a nice season. I still think they're a bubble team to make the playoffs. I'm also going to go over 90.5. And I think it just barely goes over, like 91, 92 points. You said it, this Josh Norris injury situation scares me. He basically missed almost all of last season due to shoulder surgery. And now his shoulder's acting up on him again. The Shane Pinto contract stuff. I do like their blue line. Shabbat, Chikrin, and Jake Sanderson. That's pretty solid. But another question mark I have, and I have this question mark with a few other teams as well, is the goaltending. And it's not even that I think Korpisalo is going to have a good year, but he's never played more than 39 games in a season.
I didn't know that. Wow, I didn't know it was that low. Okay.
He's never played more than 39 games. And this is the situation with some other teams as well. I look at the Minnesota Wild with Philip Gustafson, who used to be an Ottawa Senator. And I mean, I guess the Senators would really wish they could take that one back. But like Korpisalo has now played more than 39 games in a season. So can he handle a full workload? Like even last year with Samsonov, right? Like he only played like 40-ish games. The Leafs needed Murray. They needed Wall. Like they needed support behind Ilya Samsonov. And I think the Senators are going to need the same thing. So I'm going to go over, but slightly over Lepore.
That's shocking. How many years has Korpisalo been in the league? He's in his late 20s, isn't he?
Yeah, he's entering his age 29 season and has never played more than 39 games. Last year was his highest amount of games played, 39 games for the Blue Jackets and Kings combined.
That's not getting talked about around the city of Ottawa. I think Sens fans out there just got a little nervous after that stat you brought up, Bruno.
Like it's tough. Like remember even when Jack Campbell became the Leaf starter, like as good as he was for the Kings and then to start his Leafs career in those spurts, like it's one thing to be good over the course of like 25, 30 games, but then can you translate that over the course of a full season? And can you be a workhorse goaltender? And gone are the days where like every goalie is playing 60 plus games, but like the best goalies still play, 55, 60 plus games. And they are rare at this point, but like, look what happened to Jack Campbell. He couldn't handle a full workload either. So as good as Korpisalo has been at times throughout his career, I don't know. I don't know if he can handle a full workload. Like if you're only going to get 40 games out of this guy, there's question marks there again in net. And that's what screwed Ottawa last season was their goaltending. So, I mean, and their poor defensive play, but both of those are kind of mixed together, if you will. Right. So I do have question marks, but how about with the Detroit Red Wings? 84.5 points. I do think they're improved. I can start with this, Lepore. I think they're improved. Mm-hmm. I looked at their roster the other day and I was like, damn, like this is actually pretty solid, like depth roster. They're just lacking like some really high end talent. I'm going to say this team is they're still not there yet. They're going under 84.5.
You think they're going under?
Detroit fans.
Think they're going under 84.5, Bruno?
Yeah.
Again, I'll disagree with you. Okay. I'll go over on the Detroit Red Wings. I think it's slightly over. I don't think they clip 90 points, but Cedar's got another year. They bring in DeBrincat. That Larkin stuff is settled. He signed in there. Why not? I think they can surprise some people, and they're going into the season with nothing to lose. And I'm not saying they're going to make the playoffs or anything like that, but I think they'll be in around 86, 88 points. So I'll say over on the Red Wings.
That's fair. Just the way that I look at it is that I have the 6 teams that we talked about. I think those are the top 6 teams in the Atlantic. So the bottom 2 teams, I think, again, just like last year, are going to be Detroit and Montreal. Detroit finished with 80 points last year. I think they get more than 80 points, but honestly, I think this number is like almost bang on. I think they finished with like 83, 84 points because there's just too many other good teams in the Atlantic. But hey, the money, or I should say the Vegas is telling us that the over is the play. It's minus 132 on Pinnacle. So
yeah, they have their forward depth lacks, but up front with their top line of Larkin, I assume it's gonna be Larkin, DeBrincat, and Mason Raymond. That's a pretty good top line. So those guys will score. They'll have a good power play. Yeah, I'll stick to my over.
Okay, and I know we've been spending.
Or sorry, did I say Mason Raymond? I meant Lucas Raymond.
Yeah, Lucas Raymond. There you go. Mason Raymond, former Toronto Maple Leaf and former player for 8 different teams or something like that.
He was a journeyman for sure.
And next up, I already mentioned them, the Montreal Canadiens. They are the likely team to finish in the basement of the Atlantic Division once again. Their point total set at 72.5. Last year they had 68 points. I'll start this one off again. They're going under. I think this team should just be completely tanking again.
That should be, yeah.
I know they've been in tank mode for the last couple of years, but good God, Juraj Slafkovsky and David Reinbacher, those are the prizes in the draft. It's not great. I think this team needs one more year of tanking and just keep stockpiling that cupboard.
Yeah. What was it again? 72.5?
72.5.
And you said they were 68 last year. Yeah, I'm going to go over, Bruno.
Wow. Okay.
I think very often when we think teams are going to be really bad, they're not as bad as we think they are. And going into Montreal is still tough. They'll beat the Leafs a couple times because they always do.
That's a lock.
That's a lock. I'm expecting a lot out of Cole Caulfield this year. I'm expecting him to duke it out for the Rocket. I really am. I love this kid. I think he's going to score a fuck ton of goals. If he pushes 50 or clips 50, I won't be surprised. And I think that'll carry them. So I'll go over. I don't think it's going to be too much over, but I don't see it being in the 60s.
Okay, so you're over on the Habs. I'm under again. I just think they're finishing dead last in the Atlantic. This division's too good. I don't see them winning enough games. But we just covered 3 Canadian teams, unless I'm losing my mind in the Atlantic Division. There's 3, right? I'm not going crazy. Toronto, Ottawa,
Buffalo's
and Montreal.
Canada, right? Buffalo's Canada, right?
Yeah, Buffalo's basically a Canadian team.
So is Detroit. They're the Windsor.
So I mean, they're all Canadian teams,
except the Canadian division,
except the Florida teams in Boston.
Right.
Well, moving on now to the Metro Division, there are no Canadian teams in the Metropolitan, so we can just start at the top. And I mentioned this off the top of the show, is that the Carolina Hurricanes right now have the highest point total at Pinnacle Sportsbook. I'm sure if you check a bunch of different sports books, they're probably number 1. Their over-under point total set at 108.5. Last year, they had 113 points. Just like the Leafs, great regular season team. Now, I will give them credit. They have performed better in the playoffs than the Leafs have recently. They at least have shown the ability to get to the conference final. I mean, they've won a Stanley Cup. Have they won 2 Stanley Cups?
No, they lost in the finals.
That's right. They lost in 2002.
Yeah,
with Paul Maurice, and then they won in 2006.
After the lockout, yeah.
But I mean, shit, this team has had way more playoff success than Toronto has over the last 20 years.
Yeah, those fans deserve it.
So what do you think of this Hurricanes team? Like, are they winning the President's Trophy? Is this the best team in the NHL?
The Hurricanes are a sick team, a lot of depth. They play smart hockey. Rod the Bod is an amazing coach. Everyone loves him. But I have a different take on this one, Bruno. I'm going to say that the Carolina Hurricanes finish under that total. And I think it's because this group has been good and has battled long enough that they're in that mode of they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit to finish with 110, 120 points. They don't care. They know where they want to be, and they know that it's not important to win the division or whatever. So I think they're a sick team. It's kind of the opposite of Toronto, how I think that I'm smashing the over, but I have questions about the playoffs. Carolina, I'm under, but I'm pretty confident about how they'll perform in the playoffs.
I like this take. Well, here's my take on the Hurricanes. I don't think they're going to win the division. And I think we all know who I think is going to win the division based on that comment. I'm still going to say that they go over.
Okay.
But I think the Devils are just going to have like a really good season. So I'm going to say the Canes go over 108.5. They're too well-rounded. They're too well coached. Rod the Bod himself, just how jacked he is good for like what, 3 extra points in the standings.
Yeah,
pretty much. So
yeah.
I mean, he's
3
just
extra
like
reps.
What's that?
You gotta put a poster of Rod the Bod on your wall so you get 3 extra reps in the weight room.
Exactly. Rod the Bod, man, I'd run through a brick wall for that guy. Just an absolute stud. But anyway, I think they go over slightly, but that is because I think the New Jersey Devils are going to win the division. Their point total set at 106.5. This is an exciting fucking team, man.
Yeah.
They're loaded. They got all their guys signed now. Full year of Timo Meier. Luke Hughes, full year of him on the blue line. Jack Hughes, I think, is going to take another leap. Like, I think he's going to be a 100-plus point player this year. Just barely missed out on 100 points last year. I mean, this team is loaded. They're fast. They score. They play well defensively. So I'm obviously smashing the over on the New Jersey Devils. Over 106.5 on the Devils is actually the underdog. It's minus 107, whereas under 106.5 is minus 111. But yeah, I have the Devils over 106.5. I think they finished with, similar to what they did last year. They had 112. I think maybe they're like 113, 114 point team.
Yeah, I think I'm with you, Bruno. I think they're going to light up the regular season. It's the opposite comment I made about Carolina, how Carolina's been around long enough that they don't care. New Jersey's still young. They're going to be fired up all regular season, and they're going to want to blow everyone away. And if they get like 115, 120 point total, win the President's Trophy, I will not be surprised. I'm smashing the over on the Devils.
Yeah, I think they're definitely in play to win the President's Trophy. They're going to be right up there. So yeah, this is just like an electric team, and they're young too. Like, this team has like a nice, I would say, like 5-year window where they can do some major damage. But people were saying the same thing about the Leafs, and the Leafs haven't done shit. So
you know what's scary about the Devils? It was the first thing I thought when the news came out. The increase to the cap. There's how Batman made the comment that the cap's going to go to, was it 87 or 88 million? You look at New Jersey's cap sheet, and you're giving that team that extra money.
Oh, that's unbelievable.
That's a problem for the rest of the league.
All right, so moving down the list here. Next up, we have the New York Rangers, 101.5. I don't have like any strong takes. I just think they're a good team. Last year, the Rangers finished with 107 points. I mean, you know what? I can't believe I'm picking it. I picked the Hurricanes to go under. I'm going to say the Rangers go over just slightly.
Yeah. That's where I'm at too. They're going to be, I look at the lineup, I look at the talent. They'll get 100 points is how I see it. Like if the Rangers finish in the 90s, that's disappointing. And again, what's more likely? I would say like 105 is more likely than 95. So I'll hit the over on the Rangers.
How about the Penguins? This is probably the most interesting team in the division, obviously, because they traded for Erik Karlsson. They brought in Riley Smith. Kyle Dubas was busy, man. He was making some moves. So I don't know how I feel about this. I still don't think the Penguins are that great. I love Crosby. I love Malkin. I love Karlsson and Letang, but I think this is another year where the Penguins just kind of disappoint. I have them finishing under 98.5 points.
Yeah, I think it's close. I think that one's close, but I'm with you, Bruno. I hate when we agree. I was hoping with the Penguins we disagree because, like you said, this is kind of an exciting one to debate about. But for some reason, I don't think that the Carlson thing is going to work. Sometimes things are too loud. And just to add Erik Karlsson to this team, they're going to be exciting to follow. And they're going to be a great watch. It's going to be like a rock band tour when they come into town. But like you said, I hate to say it because I love Sid, but I am going under on that one.
All right, next up, we have the Islanders. I said I didn't have that many strong takes about the Rangers. Lepore, I don't even give a shit about the New York Islanders.
I was going to say, we went from the Penguins. We could have a show talking about the Penguins, the Islanders. Oh, my God.
Does anyone care about the Islanders? I mean, man, Islanders Twitter and YouTube might lose it on me for this, but they're just such a boring team. I'm not taking time out of my day to sit down and watch the New York Islanders. I'm sorry. They just don't excite me.
Yeah.
So their point total, 92.5. Like, any strong takes on this? They probably go over because they're the Islanders and they're just like a good, solid team every year. Like, last year they finished with 93. I think they're right. You know what? Fuck it. I'm going to say under on the Islanders. Under 91.5. I think they finished with 90 points this season.
90 points, Bruno. That's a rough one. Again, strong takes. Thing is with the Islanders to me are a lot like the Buffalo Sabres, that I have this thing where I kind of root for them, and maybe it's sympathy because they've had a rough go. But for me, I root for Anders Lee because he went to Notre Dame. Everyone knows I'm a big Notre Dame football fan and I follow Notre Dame hockey. Mike Bossy is one of my favorite players of all time, and probably my favorite player of all time who I never got to actually watch. So I always root for the Islanders, but I'll go under. And again, not too much under because, like you said, they're the Islanders. They won't be bad. They'll just survive and be fine. But in a good Eastern Conference, and we talked about how the Atlantic's strong, so is the Metro. So I don't see things going overly well for the Islanders. And that's a team. You can say this about every team, but there's certain teams you can really dial into. Them being 1 year older, when you look at that roster, once the entire lineup of guys in their late 20s, early 30s getting older, that could be a problem. So I'll go, like I said, I'll go under on the Islanders.
If this team didn't have Ilya Sorokin, they would probably stink. Maybe that's a little aggressive because they've just always been like a good quality defensive team. I'm seeing right now, and this could be wrong, I'm looking at Daily Faceoff and seeing Pierre Engvall slotted into their top 6. I mean, for the love of God.
Bruno smiling for everybody listening on Spotify or iTunes right now, not on YouTube.
Pierre Engvall, a top 6 forward on the New York Islanders. Good Lord. You know what? This could just be them pulling this from like a tweet where he was like slotted into the second line at practice. I haven't been following like the daily lineups of the Islanders. I mean, he could easily be like a third liner and I'm just getting all excited here, but good God.
Yeah.
Let's just move on. Next up in the Metropolitan division is the Washington Capitals.
Wow.
Bro, I think this team kind of stinks, honestly. Yeah, I have no confidence in the Capitals. Like, they're missing the playoffs again.
Yeah, I think the Capitals are going to suck. Sorry, Bruno, what's the total again?
Yeah, I didn't even mention their total is 85.5.
I'll go under. I think the Capitals are going to be bad. There's too much focus and it's too much attention on this Ovechkin record thing. And I really don't like how they're approaching it, where it just seems like it's all about him and whatever. You can do whatever you want. But with the recent moves they've made over the last couple seasons, they're not drafting well. It seems like there's no new blood coming into Washington. I think Washington's going to be one of the worst teams in the league, if I'm being honest.
Wow, that's a strong take.
I think it's going to be a dive. I think Washington is bad. I really do.
I think we're in a phase now where, and Pittsburgh is better than Washington, but the glory days of Washington and Pittsburgh running the Metro, running the Eastern Conference, like those days are long gone. At this point, it's just like, let's get Ovechkin to the goal record.
Yeah.
Let's just keep chugging along. Like, we have one of the faces of the game in Ovechkin, and it's great for business and marketing and all that stuff. This team is not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah. Those years were awesome though, man. Pens versus Caps was A+ entertainment. I enjoyed those series.
Yeah. Oh, those were the best. But I'm going to go under on the Capitals as well. And then who else do we have in this division? I believe the only other, actually, there's two more teams. Jesus. Next up, we have the Philadelphia Flyers, 75.5 points. They are getting Sean Couturier back, who missed all of last season and has had major injury problems. So this could help them because he's like a great all-around player. But this team also stinks. So do you have over or under 75.5 points for the Flyers?
Really quickly, Bruno, the Flyers, I will go over on that one. Again, I find when people think teams are going to be really bad, they're not as bad as we think they're going to be. And there's also the matter of John Tortorella. And coaches like that early on get a lot out of their players. So I will go over on the Philadelphia Flyers.
I'm actually with you on this as well, just because I think the Capitals stink. And I think like the Capitals, Flyers, and Columbus, who we're going to get to in a second, are going to be bottom three in the Metro. But I think the Flyers just getting Couturier back, and who knows if he's going to stay healthy. That's got to be worth a little bit. I'm going to say slightly over. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if the Capitals and Flyers finish within like 2 points of each other.
Me too.
Whether they're both at like 80 or 78 points, something like that. So let's go over. And then rounding out the Metro is the Columbus Blue Jackets, who lost Mike Babcock before the season started. I mentioned his name again, even though we said 3 episodes ago we would not mention his name, and we mentioned his name on every single episode. Yeah, I mean, this team sucks as well. I mean, I know I've been pretty harsh on a lot of these teams, but just keep tanking. You guys got Adam Fantilli. Go get yourself another great prospect in next year's draft, but you stink. And because of that, I'm going to say they go under, and their point total set at 73.5. So they're going under.
I'll go under on that one because I think they're going to try to be bad. What's the point? You got Fantilli. Let's add to the cabinet. There's not going to be too much effort in that front office to make a better team under on the Columbus Blue Jackets.
All right, let's move over to the Western Conference now. Yes. And let's start in the Pacific Division. Yes. And we got some juicy Canadian teams in this division. So right at the top is the Edmonton Oilers. They have one of the highest point totals in the NHL right now, set at 105.5 points. Last year, they had 109 points. Over or under, Lepore?
I'm going to go over on the Oilers. I think kind of like the Leafs, they have a fucking bomb of a regular season. And I think McDavid's going to win another Art Ross. Something like under talked about, right? Being the big Gretzky fan that I am, when Ovechkin was peppering up, I mean, I've had my eye on him as far as his goal total for years. What I mean by that is well before people really started talking about him breaking the record. And I know it was my insecurities, and I was nervous about him having the potential to break the record. I'm starting to eye McDavid with the Art Ross record. So Gretzky won 10. McDavid has 5, if I'm not mistaken, already, or 6, is it? So he's got a shot, and that's making me a little nervous. Again, I don't want anyone passing Waino, but I think him and Draisaitl, that two-headed monster's too much of an ask to be stopped in the regular season. They'll light it up. It'll be over. Also, too, man, is Campbell going to be as bad as he was last year? That was bad. That was bad.
Yeah, he was horrendous. I don't think he's going to be as bad, but I still don't think he's going to supplant Stuart Skinner as their number one, even though they're paying him $5 million a year for the next 4 years.
Well, they're saying there's the discussion going on. I don't know if it's just media saying that it's actually a debate right now as to who's going to start. I don't know.
I think that's ridiculous. I think Stuart Skinner is just flat out the better goalie. And I didn't have that take last season necessarily. I thought Campbell would be decent. I thought we both called that he was not going to be as good as he was in Toronto. Like we both nailed that, but I didn't think he was going to be like the worst goalie in hockey, which he pretty much was for a large part of last season. I also have the over on Edmonton. They had 109 points last year. I think they are the best team in this division. I don't think McDavid's going to have 150 points again. There are people who think he's going to get like 175 points. Like,
Oof.
I think he's going to settle in somewhere around like 130 to 135. I think he's going to win the Art Ross again. It'll be his 6th Art Ross trophy.
I looked it up. It'll be his 6th.
And it'll be his 4th in a row. I mean, it's insane what this guy's doing. Like, the production is just off the charts. The only guy who's coming close to it is his teammate, Leon Draisaitl, at this point. So I got the over on the Edmonton Oilers. So before we get to the other teams in order here, let's go to the next Canadian team in this division, the Calgary Flames. So last year, them and Edmonton, I believe both of their point totals were set at 101.5 or 102.5. This year, the Flames, though, set at 94.5. They had 93 last season. Lepore, are you confident in this team hitting over 94.5?
I am, Anthony Bruno. I think the Flames are going to have a good season. I think a lot of recency bias is kicking in with people's opinions of the Calgary Flames. 2 years ago, this team was an unbelievable team, a contending team. Last year, there was all the shit with Sutter. No one was happy. I think things have settled down there now. I expect Huberdeau to have a big bounce back season. He's looked good in the preseason. I think the Calgary Flames are going to surprise a lot of people. I'm going over on that one.
Yeah, I like the Flames as well. I liked them a lot last year too, and they were such a disappointment. I mean, they missed the playoffs. Their goaltending was terrible, but I agree with you. I think Huberdeau is going to have a bounce back season. I think offensively, they're going to have a big bounce back season now that Daryl Sutter's gone. It's just like a huge weight lifted off all their shoulders. And I mean, last year, didn't they set the record for like amount of games or amount of like 1-goal losses or games where like they outshot their opponent by like 10 shots and lost or something ridiculous like that?
It was like 11 times they outshot their opponent by 10 or more and lost. There was something crazy. You're right.
That can't happen again. So yeah, I think they go over as well. There's another Canadian team in the Pacific Division, and that is the Vancouver Canucks. Their point total set at 88.5. What do you think about the Canucks?
As much as I hate to do it, being a BC boy, born in Prince Rupert, British Columbia, I'm going to go under on the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think it'll be too much under. I think the Canucks will be respectful this year. Rick Tocchet will inject some energy into that team. They have guys who can score. Pettersson had a great year last year. I expect him to follow up with it. And I don't think they're fighting for a playoff spot, but I think the Vancouver Canucks are going to move into like that respectability group this season.
Yeah, as much as I want to hit the over on the Canucks, because I think Demko's going to have a bounce back season. I think Pettersson's going to be a 100-point player again. There's just too many other good teams in this division, and we're about to get to them. And I think the Canucks are still on the outside looking in. I just think they're not good enough to compete with, the top 5 teams, let's call it, in this division. Like, I think Calgary's going to be better. The Kings, I think, are going to be better, even though they had a great season last year. So the Canucks, yeah, I'm sorry, Canucks fans. I got to go under 88.5. So let's get to the rest of the division now. Next up is I guess we can start with, let's start with Vegas. Obviously, the Stanley Cup champions, 101.5 points, over or under.
That's a pretty well where I would put Vegas. I'll go over. If someone just said to me, guess how many points the Vegas Golden Knights are going to get, they just won the cup. They're chilling. They're not going to be guns a-blazing in this regular season, but they still have a lot of fucking talent. So I'd say maybe like 103, 104 points. They'll still be really good. So I'll go over on the Vegas Knights.
Last year, the Pacific Division, the only division in the NHL that had 4 teams finish with 100 or more points. And I think we could be in for something similar this season. Maybe the Kraken fall off, but I have the Knights also going over 101.5. I don't think they're going to win the division like they did last year. I think the Oilers are going to win the division. But yeah, the Knights, they're still a great team. They didn't really lose anything in the offseason significant. Okay, they lost Riley Smith. Like, Okay. They're still going to be really good.
Okay.
Next up, Lepore, the LA Kings, who I think are really good.
Oh,
100.5 points. They're going over this, man. They had
yeah.
104 points last season. They had Pierre-Luc Dubois into the top 6. The only question mark with the Kings, and maybe this is a bigger question mark than I'm giving it credit for, is their goaltending with Phoenix Copley and Cam Talbot. But I'm going to say the Kings go over 100.5 points.
Do you think what they gave up for Dubois in the way of depth is like an underrated, is like underrated with regard to how much it's going to affect the team?
A little bit. Like, I don't love that they, like Gabe Vilardi, I think, was a really good player.
Mm-hmm.
Good get for Winnipeg. Like,
You follow Paisan.
yeah, exactly. Like, he's a good player too, a good two-way player. Played a lot on the penalty kill for them. Like, it's yeah, I mean that's a good question, Lepore, but I look at their center depth down the middle now. Kopitar, Dubois, Philip Deneau, 1, 2, 3. And who knows? Dubois, like at times, will probably play on the wing. But like Kevin Fiala, who they added last year, their defense core like isn't great, but like Drew Doughty is still playing really well, even though he's getting up there in age. He's the same age, by the way, as actually I believe he's a year older than both John Tavares and Steven Stamkos. So he's getting up there in age, but still a good player. I just think the Kings, I think they're really good, man. I love the center depth, and I think they finish with over 100.5.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, I don't think they're going to go bananas, but I think they'll hit 100 points. Like that's the way I look at it. They have enough talent and depth, and you pointed to their centers. It's very, very good. There are question marks, like you said, in nets. So the Kings are a funny one, man. I mean, I'll go over, but if there's like a surprise with the LA Kings and they have a bad season, I won't be surprised either. Maybe because like all the shit with Pierre-Luc Dubois with regard to his attitude, and like I said, they lost those depth pieces. So I'll hit the over, but I'm weary of the LA Kings. Very, very weary, as much as I root for them.
I know, now you're making me think twice about them. You're making me think twice, but
oh, you can't change it, Bruno. It's like giving a score. You can't change it.
I'm sticking with the over as well. The other team that's very intriguing in this division is the Seattle Kraken. They exceeded expectations last year, finishing with 100 points. And now their point total, very similar to what it was last season, set at 93.5. So are they going to exceed expectations again, or are they going to take a step back this year?
I think that's a simple one. I really like that Seattle team. A lot of balance, a lot of depth. We all laughed at Ron Francis when he put this team together, and he strutted past all of us last year when this team made the playoffs and did well in the playoffs. I think they make the playoffs, so I have to hit the over if the total is 93.5.
Yeah, I'm hitting the over as well. Maybe they don't finish with 100, but now Matty Beniers in his second year had a good rookie season. Like, he could explode into like a point per game player this year. Vince Dunn had a breakout season on defense. Their goaltending is still a little iffy, but I have the over 93.5 as well. I think they're a really good team.
Yeah.
Are we missing anyone else? Oh yeah, we're missing the 2 California teams in this division. I mean, there's nothing else to say about, like, these teams suck.
Yeah.
The Ducks,
so quickly.
The Ducks and Sharks, 68.5 points, 66.5 points, based on Pinnacle's Lions, projected to be the 2 worst teams in the NHL.
Yeah, I'll just go quick. I'll say over on the Ducks, under on the Sharks.
And I will say under and under. They both suck.
We're going for first overall here.
Although I do really, I like the talent on Anaheim. I think they're exciting, but they still stink.
They're shit, bro.
Yeah, like they stink.
Yeah, they're a ball hockey team, man. Exciting to watch, but there's no content.
That's pretty spot on, actually.
Yeah.
They're like a really good men's league team with like all of like these shooters who have like a lot of skill, but just like they're just there to like hog the puck and like do some nice things, but they don't really care about like winning and playing defense.
Yeah, and they look cool and they all have amazing gear and flow and all that stuff. They're rocking the half visors when everyone else.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you look good on the ice, that's really all that matters, right?
Oh, fuck, it's California, man. It's a fashion show. What do you expect?
So, I mean, they stink, but they look good. So good for you, Anaheim Ducks. Let's now go to I'm already forgetting the Central Division. Good Lord. We don't have too much time left in the show, but let's go over this quickly. Obviously, leading the way, Colorado, 106.5 points.
I will go under on that one, just under. I think, again, Colorado doesn't care about the regular season because of their talent and their depth. They will have a great season. I think they clip 100 points. But I don't think they care enough to like bang out 110 plus points. So I'll go under on Colorado, actually.
And the books agree with you because right now at Pinnacle, under 106.5 points is minus 115. Over is minus 104. But guess what? I disagree. I'm smashing the over here because this team dealt with a lot of injuries last year, and Gabriel Landeskog is going to be out all season, and that sucks. But Makar missed time last year. Like there were times where like Mikko Rantanen was just like carrying this team on his back. Like even McKinnon has had issues with injuries as well. But now like everyone's healthy. They bolstered the team in the offseason, picking up Ryan Johansson. Arturi Lehkonen also missed time last year. They picked up Jonathan Drouin, McKinnon's buddy, from his time with the Halifax Mooseheads.
Why not?
Their defense core is unreal. Gorgiev and net. I'm smashing the over here. I think they steamroll this division.
But you love that team the way you went through that lineup.
Yeah, that's a really, really good team. But moving down the list here in the Central Division, there's another really good team, a team close to my heart that I've liked for the last few years. The Dallas Stars, 104.5 points.
Bruno's second favorite team. I think that's an easy one. I think you go over on the Dallas Stars. They added guys. That's a team on the rise. Good young players, some veteran leadership. I've always thought Dallas is a good market to play in where people care, but they don't care enough for it to really affect you. And there's probably not a whole lot of negativity because people will save that for the Dallas Cowboys. So I'll hit the over on the Dallas Stars. I think that's one of the easier ones.
The Dallas Stars no longer underrated. They were like my dark horse team for the last like 2 or 3 years, but they are no longer a dark horse. They're one of the best teams in the NHL. Their forward group is just phenomenal. So much depth. Jason Robertson had a massive breakout year last year. Joe Pavelski is still good, even though he's like, what is he like? Is he 39 now? Like
I think he's 39.
He's old, man. And Jamie Benn just decided to be good last year.
Yep.
Miro Heiskanen on defense, Jake Ottinger in net. I mean, good Lord. They have a ton of talent. I think it's going to be a dogfight between them and the Avalanche for first in the Central. I think they both go over their point total. So yeah, I'm hitting the over on 104.5 for the Stars. Next up, the Minnesota Wild, 96.5 points.
That's like exactly where I would put them. Because I would like put them in a wild card spot. They'll make the playoffs because they always do. That's tough. That is a really tough one. I'll just say over. They end up with like 97 or 98 simply because I just, for some reason, love the Minnesota Wild.
Yeah, I like them as well. The question mark that I have for this team is Philip Gustafsson. Can he repeat what he did last season?
Fair point.
Yeah. And he's another guy who hasn't had a full workload before. Very much similar to Jonas Korpisalo and some of the other goalies we mentioned during this show. Marc-Andre Fleury is still there. Like, I mean, he's fine. I forgot about Marc-Andre Fleury.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
I just don't think like Gustafsson had one of the best save percentages in the league last year. I don't think he's going to do that again. I love Kaprizov. I love, like Matt Boldy and some of the other talent they have. I'm going to say over Lepore, but like, I don't think they're going to hit 103 points like they did last year.
Okay.
I think they're going to be like in the high 90s.
Yeah, me too.
Let's keep going down the list here. We're almost done. We're almost done, folks. Next up, we have the Winnipeg Jets, the final Canadian team. We should have talked about Winnipeg first. I screwed that up, not going to the Jets off the top.
Oh, we just took some shit from people in Winnipeg, Bruno.
Sorry, Winnipeg.
Sorry, Winnipeg. We love you, Winnipeg.
We love you, Winnipeg. Even though
you ever been to Winnipeg?
Cold and there's not a lot to do there.
You ever been to Winnipeg?
I have not, so I shouldn't talk this negatively.
You know what, man? So I went there for a work trip once for some training, and even people who live in Winnipeg will admit, like, people talk smack about the city of Winnipeg. And yeah, I mean, it's not the greatest, but it's a cool town. I mean, maybe they take more shit than they deserve.
I do have a soft spot for Winnipeg because when I used to work for Global News, I used to do evening sportscasts in Winnipeg.
Oh,
and I used to cover the Jets. When the Jets were good, like when they were like making runs, deep runs in the playoffs.
Yeah, when hockey news
used to cover the Blue Bombers, the Jets, the Winnipeg Gold Eyes, the baseball team.
Okay.
They play in the American Association. Who knows if that whole like league even exists anymore? I mean, I haven't checked it out in the last little while, but yeah, soft spot in my heart, Winnipeg, even though it sounds like I've been bashing you. I actually do. I do like you, Winnipeg. And I think they're going to have a good season. 91.5 points. I'm going to say over. Let's go. Let's fucking go, Winnipeg. Over 91.5 points.
That's tough because, I mean, Scheifele, Hellebuck being both UFAs, correct? That's a hard one.
I mean, there could be some major changes. Like if this team gets off to a shitty start, those guys could get dealt.
Yeah, that's a hard one. Oh, I'm going to go under. I'm going under on Winnipeg simply because things can really fall apart. Because I don't think they would be way over that 91.5. But at the same time, I think things can really fall apart for them. So like some of the other teams, I'll be rooting for the Jets, and I hope Hellebuck and I hope Scheifele stay. But if I'm betting my own money, I'm going under on the Jets, unfortunately.
Hey, Lepore, that depth you talked about, getting Iafallo, Gabe Velarde.
It's true.
Still got Connor Hellebuck, one of the best in the business.
True.
All right, I'm going over.
Yeah, Cheveldayoff's a good GM, man. Underrated.
Yeah, he's good.
He makes things happen.
I like him. So I have confidence no matter how this season goes that he'll be able to figure out the Scheifele and Hellebuck situation. But all the best to you, Winnipeg Jets. Next up, Lepore, we are almost done here. The Nashville Predators, Ryan O'Reilly's their number one center.
Gross.
I mean, 86.5 points. I'm going under. I'm sorry. I like Ryan O'Reilly, but for the love of God, that's your number one center. That's all I need to know to smash the under on this.
Yeah, I don't like the Nashville Predators simply because I hate how every time they're playing or they're in a playoff run, all everyone's talking about is country music and blah, 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 and how some of the players on their team love country. And to me, that move buying out Duchesne was very, very strange. Very, very strange. I'd like to know the inner workings of that decision. But I'll go under as well. I think the Preds are going to be bad.
I'm just looking at their roster right now. Like it's brutal. I almost want to throw up looking at their forwards.
Yeah, when you really have to think about their players, even their high end players, like to remember who they are, it's not a good sign.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. Like I can't name half of their lineup. Like I'm looking at it right now. Unless you're like the most hardcore hockey fan, I'd be stunned if you could name more than like 6 forwards on the Nashville Predators right now.
Who are their wingers? I'm trying to think now. Like they're
okay. Well, Philip Forsberg is good,
right?
Like he's legit good. But Dennis Gurianov, Gustav Nyquist, Philip Tomasino, Cole Smith, Luke Evangelista, Yakov Trenin. I mean,
you got some cool names there, but that's about it.
I mean,
literally names.
Yeah, this team is terrible. Let's wrap it up now with a couple more teams going down the list in the division. We have the St. Louis Blues, 84.5 points.
I'll go over. I'll go over on the Blues. I say Shen, newly appointed captain, motivates that team. And St. Louis is kind of like Minnesota, where they always seem to be good, fine. You know what I mean? Like just in that safe boat. So I'll go over with the St. Louis Blues. I don't think they're going to be good, but I think they'll be better than that. I'll go over.
I think they're going to have a bounce back season. Last year, only 81 points.
Yeah, it was weird.
They have a nice forward group, and now they have Jacob Verana, who, if he can stay in this lineup, that's a really nice ad for them. Braden Shen, Jordan Kyrou, two really good young players.
It's nice.
They didn't have as good a season as they did the year before, or at least Robert Thomas, to my knowledge. I'm just racking my brain. I have like a million stats just going through my head at all times, but Robert Thomas was like a point per game player 2 years ago, and they kind of dropped off last year. But I think they're going to go, because I think the Predators stink, so I think they're going to be better than the Predators. I'll go over. Final two teams before we wrap this up, Lepore. The Coyotes and the Blackhawks. So the Coyotes 76.5 points, Blackhawks 71.5.
I'll go under on both. I think that's giving too much credit to the Coyotes. I picked over on them last year because I thought going into that barn was going to be really weird for teams and they would sneak a lot of points that they didn't deserve. I think teams are going to be more used to it now and aware and more dialed in when they go in Arizona. So I'm going to say under on the Coyotes. And I think Chicago is going to be a fucking blast to watch. And then it's going to be the Bedard show and everyone's going to be tracking it, but they're still not good. So I'll go under on both.
Yeah, as much as I like Connor Bedard and I think he's going to be very close to a point per game player, that team is still nowhere close. So I think they go under, but I think the Coyotes are going to be like pretty solid. This might sound crazy. I think they have a chance to be better than Nashville. Like, I think they're going to finish ahead of Nashville. Like, I think Nashville sucks.
Yeah, I don't think that's that hot of a take. So, it's a take, but it's not that hot of a take.
Like, the Coyotes, man, they got some fucking electric young players. Clayton Keller, Barrett Hayton, Dylan Gunther, Logan Cooley. Like, they just got Sean Dursey. I mean, God, they got some nice players, man. So I'm going to go, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. And bringing up that point that you said about it being tough to play in Arizona last year, they were 21-15-5 at home.
I called it, bro. It was going to be hard, man.
And 7-25-9 on the road.
Yeah, that building. And they beat Boston. They beat Toronto. They beat good
Leafs there.
They beat good teams.
They beat Vegas at home. Like, they had some monster I think they even beat Dallas at home, I want to say. Pretty crazy.
Was it Cooley who scored that goal, like the first game of the preseason?
Yeah, that like 360 spinorama, like dangle goal.
What a fucking that's a sick goal in like Friday night pickup hockey or beer league hockey. Fucking kid does it in the NHL. What a goal.
He's electric, man. Third overall pick in the draft a couple years ago. He is so electric. I'm excited to watch the Coyotes, man. I think they're
look at you,
a sneaky good team, man.
Anthony Bruno glowing about the Phoenix Coyotes, Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah, sorry, like again, I say like sneaky good. I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think they're going to be better than people think.
It's not a disaster.
Yeah. But that does it, man. That wraps up the season preview. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we officially end the pod?
Oh, this, like I said, Bruno, this is my favorite show to do because it brings engagement. Everyone's got a favorite team. Everyone's got thoughts on their favorite team and predictions for their favorite team. So comments, man, if you agree with us, disagree with us, think we're terrible, think we're handsome, think we're ugly, comment down below and let us know what you think about us personally and what you think about our hockey picks.
That is going to do it for episode 118 of the Gluttons For Punishment Podcast, or GFP, a Toronto Maple Leafs and NHL podcast hosted by Michael Lepore and Anthony Bruno. If you're a longtime listener or this is the first time you're listening to us, if you really enjoyed the show, it would be a big time help if you give us a 5-star rating and review on either Apple or Spotify. I've seen a couple more reviews come in.
Nice.
So thank you guys for that. That does not go unnoticed. And if you're watching us on YouTube and you really enjoy the content, smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, as Lepore said, whether it's good or bad, and ring the notification bell so you know exactly when the GFP podcast is posting some new content. So for Michael Lepore, I'm Anthony Bruno. The regular season is almost here, baby. Let's go. We'll be back to talk some Leafs and more hockey on the next episode. But until then, have a good one, and we will chat very, very soon.
Thanks, everyone.